welcome to the KCMA podcast, aka the Foxhole. Before we get down to any great business say, this is what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to like and subscribe, and oh, by the way, leave a comment so that we can hear from you. We love hearing from you, our military family members, and those connected to those military family members. Also, don't forget to check out the wonderful KCMA website at kcma.ky.gov. On that website, you'll find all the latest and greatest announcements, updates, as well as you can find out our podcast and the very new and created blog. We want to keep you as informed as we possibly can about all things Kentucky and all things military. Listen, the Foxhole podcast was designed with you in mind. We wanted to interview key people in the bluegrass state of Kentucky who are doing everything they possibly can and within their power to help military members and their family members find success while living in this wonderful and great state. Listen, here at KCMA, we are working tirelessly, trust me, and we're working really hard to ensure that we're giving you all the best content that we can come up with that will help the military members and their families stay engaged, stay motivated, become educated, and inspired about all things Kentucky and all things military. Listen, we want to become a military-ready state, and we can do that with your help and your support. So join me in the Foxhole as I interview today's very special and amazing guest. Join me. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat among all treats today. We have none other than the one who is everybody's boss, or at least in KCMA. He is the boss. He's the executive director. He's the CEO. We take all calls from the tower, and he is the tower. He is none other than retired General Steve Bullard. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Sean. How are you?
I couldn't be better. I am so grateful that you could make time to be on the KCMA podcast. What's it feel like to be on the podcast, by the way?
Well, I love it. This is a great opportunity, and I'm glad you guys came up with it to talk about what's happening, all things military in Kentucky, and there's a lot to talk about.
Well, as we do on the podcast, let's just get started. Let's jump in both feet into the deep end of the pool. And so, General Bullard, Steve, I'm not sure what to call you. We'll go back and forth between all of them. How about that?
Sounds good.
What makes Kentucky a great state for military families to reside in?
Well, a lot of things make Kentucky a great state for the military. Number one's our history. The only sitting governor in U.S. history to lead troops in combat was Governor Isaac Shelby in the War of 1812. And his habit of taking leading citizens, he didn't pay them, he'd make them his Kentucky colonels. And that legacy has translated all the way to current times, which, it's a big deal to become a Kentucky colonel. It was a big deal in 1812 to be a Kentucky colonel. Kentuckians were 64% of the casualties in the War of 1812, and we played a major role in, every war since. But that pioneer spirit in Kentucky has maintained itself, and we've always, with intent, our government leaders and our community leaders have said we're going to support the military community in Kentucky. So we put a lot of emphasis on preparedness. And along those lines, in 1992, the General Assembly of Kentucky created the Kentucky Commission on Military Affairs to kind of watch out for the defense community in Kentucky. And we continue to do so much. And Kentucky is, we play way above our weight when it comes to the military. We're an overwhelmingly Army state. Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, Bluegrass Army Depot, heavy emphasis in the Kentucky Army National Guard. The 94% of all direct DoD spending in Kentucky is related to the Army. But we have almost 55,000 DoD people in Kentucky. That's 17 out of the 50 states. We're among the top states in Department of Defense support, with a total of $22.3 billion overall in defense investment in Kentucky. That ranks us 14th in direct defense spending by state, with a DoD direct investment of $12.6 billion in our military installations and supported activities. We ranked 8th in the nation in direct DoD spending as a percentage of our state gross domestic product. So we're heavy hitters when it comes to defense, and that's a great boon to Kentucky. We're home to nearly 300,000 veterans and their families. Of those, over 24,000 are female veterans. In Humana, headquartered in Louisville, they run military health care through TRICARE for the entire Department of Defense community. That's a $6.7 billion contract alone. We have major defense contractors here: Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, UPS, BAE Systems, Bechtel Parsons, Boeing, Science Applications International Corporation, also known as SAIC, and so much more. So we play way above our weight.
Man, that was a lot that you just rattled off right there. And it seemed like you did that off the top of your head. So if you didn't and you had a cheat sheet, that's amazing. No one would knock you. But if you know all that information off the top of your head, that's amazing. But that is clearly one of the reasons that we are moving, or we've discussed, me and Dallas, when we were talking last week, we were talking about the difference between being being military friendly and being military ready. And we feel that Kentucky is moving in the direction of being military ready. Not just saying, oh, thanks for serving, right, to our military service members, but actually putting dollars, jobs, opportunities, grants, good partnerships in place so that when our military members are ready to leave the military, resign, retire, walk away, whatever the current term is they use to exit the military, that they're ready and their skill set can be used in the civilian world, and they can acquire and earn a decent wage.
That is so correct. Dr. Dallas Kratzer loves that term, military ready. We say we're military friendly and we want to be military friendly. We're not all the way there. For example, we don't have a military retirement income tax exemption. And without that, you can't be one of the most military friendly states in the nation. And we're working in that direction. And the legislature does understand that. Our legislature, by the way, has passed since 1954 over 200 legislation to protect and grow the military and defense community in Kentucky and protect veterans. That's an incredible record. We actually sat down with the staff for the Veterans Military Affairs and Public Protection Committee of the General Assembly and mapped that out. Went all the way back to 1954 and mapped out every bill that has been passed by the Kentucky General Assembly. But we've got 5 priorities to kind of help do what Dallas said. And number 1, protect and grow DoD installations and activities. That's our prime directive. It's why we were formed in 1992. But our commission also wants us to expand the economic impact of Kentucky's defense-related industry. So we work with the legislature, the governor, Congress, and a great partner in the Economic Development Cabinet to try to grow the defense industry in Kentucky and create the framework for them to succeed. And we also want to develop and implement the model for transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses to gain employment and to have productive lives in Kentucky. That's workforce development, opportunity to access education, to get their benefits through the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs is a great a partner with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and really relies on helping out our Kentucky veterans, and they do so every single day, including we definitely want to establish Kentucky as that most military-friendly state. That's one of our goals. And then, lastly, you talked about me being the CEO and president, but the Kentucky Commission on Military Affairs, we're 2 full-time state employees, and we have yourself and Dr. Kratzer, who are federally funded, helping us through our grant through the Office of Local Defense Community Coordination with the DoD, Department of Defense. And so we don't have a budget. We don't have any programs we're responsible for. We communicate strategically and we work to gain advocacy and we kind of help people. Our job is to be aware and create and help people create. So it's a big difference from being in the military when you're running programs and managing people. Here, we're just trying to set the conditions for success and get everybody on board. And it's a lot of fun to do that.
No doubt, no doubt. I've had a great, just learning. I'm still drinking from the fire hose, but it's a phenomenal. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about bringing awareness, and sometimes bringing awareness you don't really have to have or be putting on all the programs. It's just you're pointing everyone in the direction of where the programs and where they need to be going, where they need to be supporting, and things like that. But we've talked enough a little bit shop talk and things like that. We'll get into that a little more into this interview. But this is something I'm interested in. So I know that you are a general. Clearly, anybody can Google you and figure that out. But could you tell us? Could you tell those who are listening, those who are viewing, those who want to know more about just your personal story? Tell us your military story.
Well, it's interesting. I'm glad you asked. I like to talk about it, especially the way I got in. I didn't join until I was 25. I'm a military brat. My dad was career Navy. Just passed away 3 weeks ago, unfortunately. Navy chief, was on the Forstall in the Midway, and he was career. So I lived on military bases around the world. I speak pretty good Navy, and I'm comfortable with the Navy and the military from growing up there, but I had no intentions of ever joining the military. My degree was in journalism and communications, public relations. And I was working for Associated Press as a stringer, doing freelance writing and things like that. And when I was 24 years old, spring of 1984, I played golf one day. I love to play golf. And I'm playing with an Air Force recruiter just by coincidence near Boston. And he says, "Have you ever thought about joining the military?" And I said, "Are you crazy? I'm 24 years old. I have a journalism degree. I have hair down to my shoulders, and I'm working for Associated Press. Why would the military have any interest in me?" And he said, "Well, it's the Reagan buildup. We're building up and bringing a lot of in and trying to get some diversity, in our force. And yeah, they might be interested." And I took his card, but I didn't take him seriously at all. Well, the next week I'm in New York City, and I'm doing a story for AP, helping out. I'm not the primary guy, just helping. And I run into Seymour Hersh, the Pulitzer Prize winning writer who got the Pulitzer Prize for the My Lai massacre story. He broke that, and it kind of helped lead to the end of the Vietnam War. And I knew him because when he had come up to my school, the University of Maine, a couple years before, I'd done a feature on it, and hung out with him for a few days, and really enjoyed it. I see him, "Si, you got to hear this." I tell him the story, and he says, "Do it." I went, "What? Seymour Hersh, the guy who ended the Vietnam War?
Right.
You're telling me to join the military?" I doubt he would remember this, by the way, but it happened. And he said, "Well, hold on." He said, "Just because I wrote that story doesn't mean I'm anti-military. A lot of great people in the military." And he goes, "You know what I am?" He says, I'm anti-journalist." And he goes, "You know what you and I are as journalists?" He goes, "We're frauds." And of course, I'm paraphrasing. These aren't direct quotes.
Right.
And he goes, "But we're frauds." He says, "We don't know what we're writing about. We're quick studies. We have a talent for it. We can assess the situation and relay generally what's going on. But the best journalists are people who really understand how things work, especially the subject they're talking about. If you really want to be like a foreign correspondent, which I think you've mentioned, you should join the military. Use your 20s, join the military, try to get in a special operation, learn how it works inside and out. And after you do your tour, if you then want to get out and be a journalist, you'll be a lot better at it." And I just was blown away. So I went back and I called the recruiter and said, "What do I got to do?" He said, come take this Air Force officer qualifying test," which I'd never heard of. Went and took it cold, and I'm a good test taker. Did extraordinarily well on it. And next thing you know, I got a captain from the Air Force knocking on my door saying, "We want you. When can you start?" basically. And so I wound up going into becoming a C-130 navigator. And I'm colorblind. I shouldn't even be a navigator. Another long story. And having a great active duty career, transition it into the National Guard, and just wound up, staying with it. But I loved the active duty military. Was very, very busy. I went to Pope Air Force Base, became part of the Rapid Deployment Force. I wound up going to 77 countries around the world, being involved in everything. And I wound up being so busy. I was on the road 252 days a year, and met a girl from Louisville, Kentucky, and it was very difficult, my travel on our relationship. So we made the decision to leave the active duty military, come to Louisville, Kentucky, and create a family here. And I joined the National Guard, the Air National Guard there. And that worked out really, really well. And events transpired through my career. I probably would have been you would not know me. I would have retired probably lieutenant colonel, nice flying career. But 9/11 happened, and the events in 9/11 kind of changed the U.S. military, especially the National Guard and Reserve, turning us into an operating force, and kind of changed the leadership and gave folks like me an opportunity to play more of a role than we would have otherwise played. And it went well for me. And I would have never, ever dreamed I'd wind up a brigadier general.
That's an amazing story to go from journalism to general. Sounds like the title of a great book, by the way. And so when you were, obviously you put out a great career. You did active duty, you did Air National Guard. How many years did it take you or how many years before you kind of just, I don't know if you walked away. I don't know. Dallas talked about being in preferment over retirement. I don't know if you're in preferment right now or retirement or how that works, but what was your length of service, obviously?
Well, I did 33 and a half years, and I timed out as a brigadier general. And I would have had, the military is very much up and out at every rank, including general. And you pretty much, as a general, get 5 years at any one rank, and if you don't get promoted, then you're pretty much have to retire. And that happened to me, though I think I made the most of my time as a brigadier general, but the political situation and other events just didn't work for me to become a major general. There are very few of those slots in the Air National Guard, and they're highly competitive. And I didn't get one, so I happily retired. And I was very fortunate. Governor Matt Bevin offered me this opportunity to roll into this position. And it was funny because he said, well, you may not have it for very long, depending on the results of the election. But the nice thing about having been in the National Guard, and one of the things I did not mention is that when I became a traditional guardsman, I was working for 11 years with the Association of Manufacturers. And they were under the name of Associated Industries of Kentucky at that time. But we were legislative advocacy for business and manufacturing. And what a great partnership for someone like me to be able to work directly with the legislature, the governments around Kentucky, state, local, and the congressional delegation. And it offered me as a Air National Guard officer. I was told by the association when I joined, it's a 15-year apprenticeship in Kentucky politics to really become established. Well, not if you're a member of the Kentucky National Guard. You can walk into a meeting for the first time. Who are you? Well, I'm here representing this organization. Oh, and by the way, I fly C-130s with the Kentucky Air National Guard. Oh, really? Well, instant credibility. And right. This state, especially our leadership around the state, whether it's elected leaders or anywhere throughout government and the community, really value the National Guard. And that's one of the best features of Kentucky.
I love it. So, this kind of segues right into our next question. Obviously people see KCMA, they see our initials, we're out, we post things on Facebook, we post things on all our social media, where you obviously from a political landscape, obviously you're busy in a lot of meetings, but could you tell everyone what exactly, or tell us more about KCMA? What is KCMA? And then, obviously I introduced you as the CEO, the executive director, the man calling all the shots. And then tell us a little bit more about your role within KCMA. I'm assuming this happened kind of after your military service.
Yes. So Governor Bevin offered me this opportunity, and Governor Beshear was kind enough to keep me on. So what I do is I work with everybody. So primarily, I'm a member of the administration, of the Beshear administration. So I do a report every single week to the leadership of for Governor Bevin and his senior staff, telling them what we're up to. We work with the General Assembly all the time, literally, almost every day. We work with our congressional delegation pretty darn close to every day. We're we're trying. We work with our military leaders. What we want to do with the self and Stacy Shane, who's my executive assistant, or she's my executive advisor, I should say, is maintain situational awareness. We want to know what's happening to everything military around Kentucky so we can comment on it, help when we need to help, get people to the right place. It goes from, if the commanding general of Fort Knox has a request from the governor, can you help me with this? Well, then I can facilitate that request, always very successfully. If the constituent services, any legislators have constituent services questions, they tend to come to me because I seem to be the easiest outreach for them. And most of the time, if I can't help them, then I'm farming it off almost every day to the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs or to the National Guard or to Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, the Department of Defense. Classic example was State Representative Walker Thomas wanted me to get U.S. Space Force more engaged. And he goes, he asked me if I could get a speaker to talk to the General Assembly on Space Force. So I wind up putting the word out among my friends going, who has contacts? And a friend of mine in Colorado emails me and goes, well, I just have to be having dinner tonight with the Deputy Commanding General of U.S. Space Force. What do you need? And so I give him, here's what we're looking for. And what came out of that in particular was that Space Force is creating partnerships with universities that have interest in the space field and can possibly be an asset to them. Well, we have Morehead State University. They've launched 6 satellites, maybe might be 7, into space through their partnership with NASA, and they have a space center and do great things under Dr. Ben Malthus there. So I said, well, let's get all that information up to Space Force and try to get them teamed up with Morehead State University. Those type of things, just any type of thing that we can do to help our state, to help with business and industry, to working with the community around Richmond, to help get an OLDCC grant, a Department of Defense grant, to find jobs for those displaced workers who will, the 1,900 U.S. government contractors who worked a chemical weapons disposal mission there. So we just got a grant of, I think it was $674,000 to help them find jobs when the chemical disposal mission comes to a close in December of 2023. And those type of things. So we're teaming up with the Department on and the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs and the Kentucky Department of Military Affairs, the National Guard on mission. So we're constantly evaluating what kind of legislation we could do, things that are nice to do, like military license plates. And for instance, we on Star Medal, the Combat Action Badge, the Combat Infantry Badge, things like that, or to the larger things like getting a military retirement income tax exemption and everything in between, creating a Kentucky Code of Military Justice, which we did a few back, then or updating it. It just we're doing those things all the time. And the nice thing about, we have a $2 million grant right now with the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, actually, OLDCC at DOD. And in that grant, we team with the University of Louisville to create a cyber certifications program, and we call it C4. And so C4 is cybersecurity, certifications, careers, and communities. $2 million grant to work with the University of Louisville to create the opportunities for veterans and military members. The military is very interested in this, to earn their cyber certifications and then become a positive community, protecting networks and working for defense-related communities or any other type of company. Everybody needs to protect their network. So those type of things. We joined with the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council recently, John Moberly, the executive director, to help him create military to law enforcement using the Department of Defense has created something called Skill Bridge, a program to help separating military personnel find jobs in the community. And through M2LE, military to law enforcement. We're going to be able to help them get into Kentucky police academies and in some instances get direct access into police forces. We work with Kentucky Community and Technical College System to develop programs for folks. We did a really great webinar in May, Dallas did, with the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and the Kentucky Society of Human Resource Managers called SkillBridge, your untapped recruiting resource, how to successfully bring skilled veterans to your workforce.
Right.
We just do all kinds of things like this. We have great partners that we've created, helped create over the past few years, the Knox Regional Defense Alliance, Town Community to be the public advocate for the installation of Fort Knox, and the Campbell Strong Defense Alliance in Hopkinsville to be the public advocate for Fort Campbell. Because, the military, they cannot go out and lobby for themselves. There are ways you do that internally to DOD, but you can't just go out and lobby. But these organizations can do that, and they in coordination with us. And the great thing is we work for the governor, so we're all about politics and in a positive way, pro-military positive way, and just to try to advocate for anything to do with the military community. One of my ancillary roles is I'm the state commissioner for the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, and we work very closely with Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, and anyone else necessary. For the Kentucky Department of Education is a great partner to ensure that when families transfer into Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, or even to do recruiting in Somerset, then we can help them get their kids into school, and address any challenges that might enroll. And the same thing when they leave Kentucky, that we can help them get what they need when they go to Utah or California or Hawaii or Europe. So there's so many exciting things we do. I'm only scratching the surface. We have there's even more than that, but gives you a feel for kind of where we're at. So every day is exciting. We don't really know what any day will bring. Here's something that we just started, Purple Star Schools, and we're rolling that out literally this coming week here, and to enable Kentucky schools to show support for military students and their families. And because we don't have just Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, Bluegrass Army Depot, but we've got the U.S. Coast Guard Sector Ohio Valley, over 500 Coast Guardsmen in Louisville and Paducah. We've got recruiters throughout the state. They all have families, and we do everything we can to support them. And I can go on and on and on. And with EKU, we're helping them with their new Veterans Center there that they have, and I could go on and on and on. It's a lot of fun. That's one of the reasons we're doing the podcast, is over a series of weeks we can talk about the many subjects that are available to us to discuss that we can never do in this brief setting here.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. This is exactly, you have answered a million questions. Let me ask you this, just one brief. I mean, we've talked a lot about what the KCMA does, partners, things like that. Made a lot of mention of how we can happen to help our service members. But are there any special projects out there that are designed or devoted specifically to maybe like military spouses, military dependents, that you're aware of that we're on the verge of doing, or things that are out there? I know you just talked about partnering with EKU. That's a thing that can help, if they have, for those veterans, and then the purple, you said purple ribbon schools. I can't remember what you said. I think it was
purple star schools.
Purple star
schools would be, that's an opportunity for Kentucky schools to say, hey, we're going to reach out to support our military families, and or just the military in general. And you don't even have to have a military installation nearby. You might have a guard armory. It could be all for any reason, literally, or recruiters in your area. And Frankfurt schools are very interested in this. We've got the headquarters of the Kentucky National Guard there, and a lot of recruiters there, and so forth. That's going to be a podcast for Dr. Dallas Kratzer, because that's why we have him on board, is to work these opportunities for education, for workforce development, for not just our transitioning military members, but also spouses. Here's something that we are doing that's becoming very successful, and we have been recognized for Department of Defense here in Kentucky. And that is that we're working with Department of Defense has a state liaisons office, and they track things that the states do and kind of help the states very aggressively do things to support military families. And one of these, Purple Star Schools is one, but a big priority for them is occupational licensing compacts. So these occupational licensing compacts make it easier for professionals, and a lot of times we're talking military spouses, to across state lines and be able to pick up their profession in Kentucky when they come here, or when they leave Kentucky to be able to pick it up in California or wherever they go. So right now, Department of Defense has 7 priority occupational licensing compacts. We are members of 4, and we have 3 more that are going to be teed up for this legislature. And the things like the licensed professional counseling, occupational insure, emergency medical services. We're working on a national teachers compact. We're working on compacts for dentists and dental hygienists, where we have there's a lot of success stories out there. The nursing, we've got a nursing compact we're now a member of, and we're going to add a advanced practice nurse licensing compact. Kind of things that we're looking to do, and we're closely partnering with Department of Defense to make happen. And Kentucky's a leader in occupational licensing compacts. I think we're a member of like 41. The average state's a member of possibly, I think, 37. And I'm trying to pull this off my head, but that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. And we want to make sure that as these are recognized by DOD as needs, that we're reaching out to the General Assembly and getting those passed through Kentucky, so that we're on top of it and doing everything that we can to provide for our military families here.
That is amazing. Not only was it a mouthful, but it was amazing. It's to know that we're leading, because I think a lot of times the misnomer is that we're behind in so many areas, or we don't always hear Kentucky brought up when we're in major conversations a lot of times. And so there's probably just the natural assumption that, well, if your name's not brought up, then maybe you're not number one, or you're not leading, or you're not active, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is Kentucky is extremely active. Kentucky is working really, really hard every single day to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that our active duty servicemen and women, or our National Guard reservist servicemen and women, are always at the forefront of our mind, and that there's always something out there for them to do, to be involved in, to be engaged with. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I totally agree, and that's actually recognized nationally. I'm not going to take credit for that. I've only been in this job. This has been going on for a long time, and a lot of my predecessors have done fantastic work. And of course, we're building on what the General Assembly and adjutant generals and others have done, and again, governors in the past. But one of the ways it was recognized was this spring I was asked to become the co-chairman of the State Advisors Council for the Association of Defense Communities. And the Association of Defense Communities is a national association which does what we do here in Kentucky. They do it on a national level, and they're very influential, working within the Department of Defense community. And for them to reach out to me to chair, and my fellow co-chair is from Arkansas, which has a pretty strong defense community as well. And there's also a C-130 guy, Rob Gator Gator. So he's got a call sign, actually, Gator. And I have a call sign too, Bulldog, but I know.
Nice.
So for them to do that recognizes our influence in Kentucky, and we are leading, as a State Advisors Council, we're leading ADC and coordinating with Department of Defense on making sure, that things are needed. So here's a classic example from this past week. And so we had a meeting of our ADC Advisors Council. So the Air Force released their scorecard in September, and they grade communities that have Air Force installations on their community support for the installation. And Kentucky, actually, the only Air Force we have in any bulk is the Kentucky Air National Guard Base, 1,200 Air Guardsmen plus in the city of Louisville. And great unit, by the way. And by the way, our advocacy efforts help get them brand new airplanes. The new C-130J aircraft is just now being delivered they're swapping out their old H models for their J models at this time. That's something I personally worked on for 5.5 years, and this agency had a role in as well. That was quite a battle. Subject for another podcast, but very proud to have these new airplanes coming. But we have stated as state advisors, my colleagues around the country, we have a real problem with the Air Force rankings. So the Air Force is ranked, for instance, they rank Kentucky as red for education. But the way, as we look at it and evaluated their criteria, the Air Force takes every defense community in America, and they don't use, well, they may use quantitative data. They don't explain it, but they may use it to do their gradings. But basically what they do in this scorecard is if you're in the top third, then you're green. If you're in the middle third, you're yellow. And if you're in the bottom third, you're red. Well, that's automatically a negative perception you're putting on 2/3 of the defense communities in the country. And when you're not saying whether they're meeting standards or not, because theoretically, every community in the country around an Air Force installation could be meeting standards. But under this grading system, 2/3 of them are going to be yellow or red. And what kind of message sending? That's not a way to grade communities. So we're, in fact, today we had representatives up to meet with Department of Defense on this. We're, that's one of the messages that we're pressing, and those are the kind of things you got to look out for. And I could talk forever. Lots of podcast opportunities here.
I love it. And I agree. That is a very, a unique way. I'll just leave it at that. It's a very unique way to have a grading system, like you said, to automatically, that 2/3 are going to be considered subpar or below.
It's a bad grading system. I'm shame on the Air Force. I can't believe it. I'm an Air Force guy, and it's just not good.
Yeah, I totally agree. And but that's why there's people like you in positions in the KCMA and everyone else out there that's bringing attention to this, saying, "Hey, let's fix this. This is not good." Again, we are moving to be, a more military ready state. We want to show a service member, no matter what their branch is, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Space Force, that, hey, if you're in Kentucky, there's great things happening, great things can happen here, and we don't want a negative grade affecting or giving the perception that we can't take care of you. So
and that's exactly why organizations like this are necessary. We're not lobbyists because technically I can't be a lobbyist because I work for, even though see is what we do. But again, as I mentioned before, we help create the Knox Regional Alliance and the Campbell Strong Regional Defense Alliance, and we're working with the community around Bluegrass Army Depot because the community can do these things. If you're a military leader, you're a brigadier general or a lieutenant colonel or colonel at Fort Knox or Fort Campbell, you can't go back to the Army or the Air Force or the Coast Guard or whoever and say, you guys are smoking dope here, and you're completely wrong. Awful hard to do that through the military channels. It's that's why you have community advocacy groups who can go do those type of things, and why we felt it was so essential to the future of Fort Knox and Fort Campbell to create KRDA and Campbell Strong, and they've been recognized by DoD as best practices that states should emulate. And states are. So, those are the type of things we do. It's why we're important.
But before we let you get out of here, Steve, General Bullard, AKA, since I just found out something new, the Bulldog, right? Before we let you get out of here, we have what we call Sniper Round. Sniper Round are 5 questions that I'm going to ask you that you can be as long or short as you want. We just like to say the targets are coming up. Let's see if you can knock them down. So,
go for
being a sharpshooter airman, let's see if you can knock some of these targets down. All right, Sniper Round, round 1, first target. Here we go. What was your favorite military duty station? And I know you've been all over the world, literally. So what was your favorite military duty station?
Oh my God, a lot of them. I've been to 77 countries, some of which they weren't so pleasant. But RAF Mildenhall, England, and Howard Air Base, Panama, would be my favorites for very different reasons. Number one, my family history is very tied to England, and I absolutely love getting a 3-day pass to go around England, and plus flying low level throughout England. When we would do low level flights, and you'd take off and you'd leave Mildenhall or RAF Swindon or wherever you were at, and fly up through Scotland, hit the castles, fly back down, go low level down Loch Ness, maybe do an airdrop off the in the Irish Sea, off Glasgow, and then head down through Wales and do low level, and then and use castles and history like the carvings in the ground for turn points, and you'd be flying on a beautiful day up in Scotland, and RAF tornadoes would come at you and go underneath you upside down, and you're at 200 feet, and they go underneath you upside down at go at 500 knots. So God, yeah, I absolutely love it. And Panama, Central and South America is the greatest secret in the world. The Andes and the just to see the Andes and to fly all around the Central and South America doing either humanitarian relief, counter drug operations, or just embassy resupplies, and the things you get to see. What a beautiful part of the world. I could do a podcast on it.
Listen, it sounds like those. I mean, wow! They just living to explain them just sounds phenomenal. So I can only imagine sitting and watching them as you're flying over and around and by them at all the time.
Oh yes.
Well, definitely,
the Amazon goes from 14,000 feet to 0 in like 5 miles on the east side, and into the Amazon, almost a direct drop down into the Amazon River Basin. Never seen anything until you've seen that. Amazing.
Wow. Oh, well, good. I think it's best to see that from the sky, not from the ground. Because to go to the ground, that's pretty much, like you said, pretty much a drop off. That's pretty much a very steep drop off. So I would say sniper round 1, the target came up. You definitely hit a phenomenal job. You knocked that target down. Here comes target number 2, sniper round number 2. Even though that it kind of maybe even tie into the first question, but what was or is your best military memory?
Just humanitarian relief.
Okay.
Gosh, we flew into Bosnia during the Bosnian relief, on a C-130 from the Kentucky Air Guard, and a kid passed a note across the fence, and they have it framed at the Air Guard, and the handwritten note just basically said, "We love you, Kentucky Air Guard, for you helping us," in very halting English, and those. To help out around the world, to make a difference in the world. C-130 does that. It's a great mission.
No doubt. It sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. Definitely, you knocked that target down too. So 2 for 2. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3. Here we go. Sniper round, target number 3. Here it is. What was your favorite military training exercise or military training school?
Well, those are easy, actually. School would be Joint Forces Staff College, Norfolk, Virginia. I went there as a colonel, and just interacting with all the other services and learning about them. What a great year. I absolutely love that year. And then military exercises, the Air Force has something called Red Flag. There's a movie about it, and I think there's some documentaries out there on Red Flag out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and we get to go simulate combat for 2 weeks.
Last question, sniper round, question 5, 5th target. Here it is. If you could do your military career all over again, if anything, because there may not be anything, but what would you do different?
I'd get my education and fill my squares. I'd get my master's degree as soon as possible. I'd get all my, I'd take the time on the side to get my schools done. It wound up not hurting me, of course, but for instance, when I was active duty, I could have easily knocked out by correspondence squadron officer school when I was a lieutenant, and then I would have been offered a regular commission and so forth. And I chose not to. And when I finally did it, I did it too late, and I kind of learned a lesson there. And then when I got into the Guard, as soon as I was eligible for any school, I would enroll and complete it, and try it, because the more squares you fill, the more opportunity you have, and you never know when opportunity is going to knock. I did both Air Command and Staff College and Air War College with no expectation of ever getting past lieutenant colonel, but I did them. Okay. And then all of a sudden 911 happens right about the time I'm doing War College, and suddenly circumstances change. as we transition from more of a peacetime military to a warfighting military, which requires leaders that are willing to take on more risk, and it changes the dynamic, and it did wound up giving people like me an opportunity we would not have ever gotten otherwise.
I love it. 5 targets came up, 5 targets went down with ease. Phenomenal job on sniper round, Steve. But before I let you go, I always have this. This is the new thing, or one of the new things I always want to do with our guests. I want to give them an opportunity to shout out an organization they'd like to highlight or talk about or give some information about, no matter where they are. So the floor is yours. What organization would you like to highlight today?
One of the best known secrets in Kentucky is the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs that is there to advocate. 2/3 of all veterans never go out and get their benefits. So they don't even know what they are. They don't aggressively do that. And with 295,000 or so of them in Kentucky, it's they can't call everybody. It's just we do everything we can to work with. Building on that, I'll also shout out the Joint Executive Council of Veterans Organizations, which is about 26 of the veteran service organizations throughout Kentucky: National Association of Black Veterans, American Legion, VFW, Disabled American Veterans, and all the work they do to advocate for veterans. And they do a lot more than people understand. Even show up for funerals and and events. And
Yep.
I could go on and on and on, but that community is a robust one, and the folks who are in it believe in it passionately, and would love to see more veterans take advantage of what they offer.
1,000%. 1,000%. I just had a conversation with several of my buddies that just got out, just retired, and I was like, "Have you talked to your VA rep? Have you started starting your paperwork for anything?" And they looked at me like I had a third head, and they're like, "What? Why would I do that? I'm perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with me."
I felt the same
Good to
way.
me.
You need to. I mean, trust me, there are benefits that accrue to you that you've earned that
Right.
you have no idea what they are.
Exactly. And like I said, and like I was telling I was like, his daughter is 16. So in 2 years, I was like, she's going to be going, if she picks a state school, right? If you're in a military friendly, military ready state, right? You need that to kind of get her over the hump to get that tuition. Why not? If for no other reason, just get started for that. So, hopefully he will. Who knows what'll happen? Everybody's hard headed when they first get out the military, right? I know I was. So, but that
Well,
being said, that being said, as we wrap up our podcast today, final thought: what do you hope that our listeners get out of listening to the podcast today?
I hope that they understand that the military and veterans community in Kentucky is robust and very dynamic, and there's a lot more to it than people people take it for granted. When I worked, I was in the Kentucky Air Guard for a long time. If I would wear my uniform outside the base anywhere, people come up to me and they go, "Air Force? What are you doing here?" And I go, "I'm stationed here." "And where?" "Kentucky Air National Guard." "What?" And I go, "Don't you ever drive down I-65 and look to the right if you're headed south? You see all those C-130s on the ramp there and the big sign, Kentucky Air National?" They're like, "No." I can't tell you how many times I had that conversation. Which is probably a positive. In our country, the military is a very positive part of our community, and kind of an understated part, which is a good thing. Versus if you were to go to something that's a more totalitarian or something. I've been to some places where it wasn't so pleasant.
Right. I think we've all been to a few places where military presence wasn't appreciated, whether it was theirs or ours. So, but yeah, that being said, man, this was a great podcast interview. I hope you had a great time, Steve, because I learned so much in this podcast that it definitely has spurned several other ideas of how we can take and evolve this podcast.
We have an endless supply.
That being said, I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening today. I'm telling you right now, listen, if you listen to any of our podcasts, this right here is going to be the one you have to listen to. There's so much information locked in this podcast. We'll make sure everything's in the show notes. We'll make sure all the information is getting out there so that all of our listeners can expect to see, hear, tap into, or even contact me, contact us so that they know what's going on, what's happening, so that, as Dallas says, we can make sure we stay military ready.
I love it. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, retired General Steve Bulldog Bullard. Was that not an amazing Foxhole interview? I'm telling you, he's full of information. He did everything we asked on the podcast. He kept it all things Kentucky, all things military. I promise you, if you're not excited about hearing from General Bullard, I'm not sure what's going to excite you, but we're going to keep doing our best. How are we going to do our best? Because I want to hear from you. I want to hear what questions I should have asked, where I went wrong, what I should have done better, what's to come. Listen, I know in the beginning of the podcast, I asked you to check us out at kcma.ky.gov. That's the website where you'll hear announcements. You can check the podcast and view the blog. But guess what, military members and family and community? I want to hear from you. So email me at sean.owens@ky.gov. That's SHAUN.OWENS@ky.gov. Listen, I want to hear from you. Tell me how to make this better. Tell me how to make this podcast your podcast so that we're doing all things military, all things Kentucky. We're doing all things Kentucky, all things military. Listen, the recap from what General Bullard said, listen, take advantage of your education. We've heard it from our last two podcast guests. Listen, education is important, and I want you to be on the forefront of it. Take advantage of all your military schools, all of your private education, all of your public education, all of your certificates. It all adds up and it all means something. Listen, I don't want anyone to be left out or feel left out. And a special shout out to KDVA, right? General Bullard gave you a shout out. I'm giving you the shout out in our close. The Kentucky Department of Veteran Affairs. Listen, if you are separated from the military, I want you to check them out. I want you to call them. I want you to make an appointment. I want you to do anything you can to make sure you're getting all the benefits that you get. All the benefits that you earned because you deserve them. Listen, I know in the beginning of this podcast, I said we're going to work really hard at KCMA to create content that keeps you engaged, that keeps you motivated, that keeps you educated, that keeps you inspired. But this is what I want you to do until we see each other again in a couple weeks, right? Because next week is the blog, and then the following week we're going to bring in a very special guest in the Foxhole to fire some more bullets, to ask some more questions, to get some more information. So until then, this is what you do. I want you to stay engaged. I want you to stay motivated. I want you to stay educated, and I want you to stay inspired. Okay, military community, I can't wait to see you again. Until then, stay safe and have a great day.